Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thoughts of a Rambling Mind. As you know, I only make videos when I find something intriguing, and of course, I'm intrigued. In this video, we'll be talking about Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence and the records of their first 15 fighters. I'll be breaking them down into 5 fights apiece. That way it'll be easier for us to digest. And we'll be able to judge what type of adversaries and what type of record each fighter has.
When I was in elementary school and middle school, I hated doing homework. And I done my homework because how many fights did they have where they knocked out an opponent that was bigger than them? And so I've done my research, and on Bud's end, even though he has 16 of those knockouts, 5 of those 16 knockouts, and I'm including TKOs or RTDs, which means retired, 5 of those are from guys that were either a quarter of a pound, and there's 2 of those fighters that came in weighing in a quarter of a pound. One weighed in 4 pounds, and another, I think, like a half a pound on the scales the day before the fight. So naturally, that person came in weighing bigger. That's 5 fighters. On Spence's end, it was non-fighters. So non-fighters came in between a quarter of a pound, 3 pounds, even all the way up to 8 pounds, fighting Spence. Spence have TKO'd or knocked out fighters that was way bigger than him. What it boils down to is this. When you get in there and fight somebody on your level, it's all about the level of competition.
Errol Spence started his career in November 2012 against a fighter with 6 fights and an even record of 3 wins and 3 losses by the name of Jonathan Garcia. Within his first 5 opponents, all of which were more experienced with a winning record, with a max of 5 losses, with the exception of Nathan Butcher in January of 2013. This was his second fight, and he was coming off of a loss in his debut. Terrence Crawford started his career in March of 2008 against a fighter with 2 fights, both victories. Within his first 5 opponents, he fought one opponent with less experience than him, a fighter named Aaron Anderson. And his debut against Crawford in his 4th pro fight, this fighter epitomizes the class of the 4 opponents after Crawford's debut, as they all had losing records as high as 25 losses. The next 5 Errol Spence opponents all had winning records, with the exception of Eddie Cordova. They met June 2013. His record was even with 4 wins and 4 losses. In August of the same year, Spence fought Jesus Tavera, a fighter with a winning record, but equally experienced, with both fighters at 8 fights apiece. In December of that year, he met Gerardo Cuevas, a winning record, but at the highest amount of losses in an adversary that Spence has encountered. It's 11 losses. Terrence Crawford's next 5 fights were all against fighters with losing records, 3 of which have records that show more experience than Crawford, with the exceptions of Lucas Rhodes in March of 2009, who had 7 fights when he met Crawford for his 7th fight, and Corey Somerville, who was relatively inexperienced with only 4 fights when he became Crawford's 10th challenger. The following 5 fights for Errol Spence were filled with highly experienced winners whose records reflect a step up in competition for this young fighter. All of these fighters have a plus 10 win-loss ratio, with the exception of Peter Oluj, who had a plus 6 when they met for Spence's 11th fight. February 2014, culminating with his 15th challenge being a plus 20 fighter by the name of Francisco Javier with a record of 27-7. The final 5 Crawford fights we're looking at took place between 2010 and 2011. Crawford's 11th fight was against another losing fighter with the worst record of any Crawford foe, with 45 losses. Not until his 13th fight against Anthony Mora in February of 2011 does Crawford begin seeing winning fighters. But he was more experienced than his 15th adversary, Andre Georges, with a record of 11-2. As we can see, Errol Spence has by far faced the tougher competition in his first 15 fights. Both fighters experienced tough competition, but the first 15 pretty much dictates what your promotional company thinks about you and the prospects of your future career.
Gambling, I don't want to watch them bomb clot no more. Put my trust in them, now we're gonna lose.
These are my thoughts for Rambling Mind. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. I read and reply to all comments down in the comment section. And I'm out.